The galaxy was old, older than most species could imagine. Billions of stars burned in the endless dark, and around those stars countless worlds spun through the void. Life had risen on thousands of those worlds. Civilizations had been born, grown powerful, reached for the stars, and then vanished. Most of them vanished because of the Vex. Captain stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars drift past the observation window. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes that had seen too much death. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in quiet efficiency. They had been traveling for 3 months now, pushing deeper into unknown space than any human ship had gone before. Humanity was young among the stars. Only 200 years ago, they had built their first ships capable of traveling faster than light. They had found empty worlds, dead stations, and the ruins of civilizations that had died long before humans learned to make fire. But they had not found anyone alive. The galaxy seemed empty, and that emptiness felt wrong. Lieutenant walked onto the bridge, his boots heavy on the metal floor. He was tall and broad, with a face that rarely smiled and eyes that were always watching. He had been a soldier before joining the Exploration Corps, and he still moved like one. "Captain," he said, his voice low, "we picked up something." "Turned? What kind of something?" "A signal, distress beacon, old format, nothing we recognize." Handed her a data pad. "It's coming from a station about 4 hours away. Big one. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Doctor appeared at the bridge entrance, her white coat wrinkled from sleeping in the lab again. She was young for a chief science officer, with bright eyes and an excitement that never seemed to fade. "I heard we found something," she said, already smiling. "Please tell me we're investigating." Shook his head. "We don't know what's out there. Protocol says we report back and wait for a larger fleet." "Protocol also says we're here to explore," replied. "This could be first contact, real first contact with a living civilization." Looked at the data pad, then at the stars outside. She had not come this far to turn back at the first sign of something interesting. "Set a course," she said. "We'll take a look, but carefully." The station appeared on their screens 4 hours later. It was massive, a sprawling structure of metal and glass that stretched across the void like a sleeping giant. Light still flickered in some sections, but most of it was dark. As they drew closer, they could see the damage. Holes torn in the hull, scorch marks on the outer walls. Something bad had happened here. They docked at an airlock that still had power. Led the team personally, with and 6 security officers. Came to, her scanner already humming as she recorded everything. The inside of the station was cold and quiet. The hallways were wide, with high ceilings and multiple doors in every direction. Frowned as she studied the architecture. "This is strange," she said. "Every room has at least 3 exits. The corridors curve so you can never see too far ahead. This whole place is designed for running away." "From what?" asked. They found the answer in the station's central archive. The computer systems were damaged but not dead, and managed to pull data from the core. What she found made her face go pale. "There are records here," she said quietly. "Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds." She scrolled through the data and her hand began to shake. "They're all marked the same way. Vex extinction event, every single one." Looked at the screen. Image after image showed planets, cities, civilizations that had once been great. All of them were marked with red warnings. All of them were dead. "What are the Vex?" she asked. Found a visual record. The creature that appeared on screen made everyone step back. It stood 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that looked like it had grown from its body. Its limbs were long and ended in claws that could cut through metal. Its head had no eyes that they could see, but it was covered in small sensors that seemed to track everything around it. Spines ran down its back, and the record noted that they contained venom that could kill most species in seconds. "Apex predators," whispered. "They've been hunting the galaxy for 10,000 years. Every species that reached the stars eventually met them. None survived." checked his weapon. Then we need to leave now. But before anyone could move, they heard something in the darkness. A scraping sound like claws on metal. Then a voice, weak and terrified, speaking in a language their translators struggled to understand. "Help us, please, they are still here." They found the survivors in a storage room deep in the station. 3 small creatures, barely a meter tall, with wide eyes and thin limbs that trembled constantly. They called themselves the Kel, and they were the last of 200 refugees who had fled to this station. "The Vex came 3 cycles ago," the eldest Kel said. "His name was difficult to pronounce, so they called him Elder. They hunt us for sport. They do not need food. They do not need resources. They simply enjoy killing." "Why don't you fight back?" asked. Elder looked at him like he had asked why they did not fly into the sun. "Fight the Vex. No one fights the Vex. No one has ever fought the Vex. You run. You hide. You pray they find someone else first. That is how the galaxy survives." Felt something cold settle in her stomach. "How many Vex are on this station?" "A hunting party, 5 warriors and their alpha leader." Elder's voice broke. "They have been here for 3 cycles and they have killed all but the 3 of us. They are playing with us, making the hunt last longer." The lights flickered. Somewhere in the station something moved. The Kel pressed themselves against the wall, their eyes wide with pure terror. "They know you are here now," Elder whispered. "They have been waiting for new prey. You should not have come. No one should ever come here." Looked at her team. Was already raising his weapon, his face hard. Was clutching her scanner like a shield. The security officers formed a defensive circle around the Kel. In the darkness beyond the door, something laughed. It was a sound no human had ever heard before, but they understood it perfectly. It was the sound of a predator that had found new toys to play with. The hunt had begun. The darkness in the station seemed to breathe. Every shadow held the promise of death, and every silence was broken by distant sounds that made the Kel shake with fear. Kept her team moving, guiding them through the curved hallways toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Walked at the rear, his weapon raised and his eyes never still. He had fought in wars. He had seen terrible things, but there was something about this place that made his skin crawl in ways he had never felt before. The station was not just damaged. It was haunted by the ghosts of everyone who had died here. "How far to the ship?" asked. She was trying to keep her voice calm but could hear the fear underneath. 20 minutes if we move fast," replied. "Stay close, stay quiet." They made it 5 minutes before the Vex found them. It came out of the ceiling. One moment there was nothing, and then 3 meters of armored death dropped into the hallway. The Vex landed without sound, its body moving in ways that seemed wrong, like it had too many joints. Its head turned toward them, and although it had no visible eyes, knew it was looking directly at her. The security officers opened fire. Plasma rounds lit up the hallway, striking the creature's chest and head. The Vex did not fall. It did not even step back. The rounds bounced off its armor like rain off stone, leaving small scorch marks but nothing more. Then it moved. Had seen fast things before. She had watched videos of predators on Earth, seen combat footage of enhanced soldiers. None of it prepared her for this. The Vex crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat. Its claw swept through the air and caught one of the Kel, lifting the small creature off the ground. There was a sound like breaking glass, and the Kel went limp. Elder screamed. The other Kel tried to run, but their legs would not work properly. They fell to the ground, paralyzed by terror that had been bred into their species for thousands of generations. The Vex dropped the dead Kel and turned toward the humans. It tilted its head, studying them. Then it began to walk forward, slow and confident. It was not attacking. It was savoring. It wanted them to feel fear before they died. Stepped forward. His weapon was empty, the charge depleted on useless shots. He looked around and saw a metal pipe lying among the debris on the floor. He picked it up. "What are you doing?" whispered. Did not answer. He watched the Vex approach, counted the steps, measured the distance. The creature was less than 3 meters away now, close enough. He swung the pipe with everything he had. The metal connected with the Vex's head. The sound rang through the hallway like a bell. The creature staggered, not from pain, not from damage. The pipe had barely scratched its armor, but it staggered because for the first time in its existence, prey had struck back. The Vex froze, its sensors focused on, trying to understand what had just happened. In 10,000 years of hunting, no creature had ever attacked a Vex. They ran, they hid, they begged for mercy. They did not fight. Saw the moment of confusion. "Move," she shouted. "Everyone move now." They ran. The Vex stood still for 3 long seconds, its mind struggling to process something that should not have happened. By the time it recovered and began to chase, the humans had gained enough distance to reach a sealed bulkhead. Slammed the door controls, and heavy metal slid shut between them and the predator. The Vex hit the door a moment later. The metal dented inward, but it held. They could hear the creature on the other side scratching at the barrier, not trying to break through, just reminding them that it was still there, that it would find them again. They reached the ship without meeting another Vex. The engines were already warm when they sealed the airlock and lifted away from the station. Only when they were 1,000 kilometers away did anyone breathe normally again. Elder sat in a corner of the cargo bay, his thin body shaking. The other surviving Kel sat beside him, silent and broken. 200 of their people had come to that station seeking safety. Now there were 2. "You hit it," Elder said finally. He was looking at with an expression that mixed horror and wonder. "You struck a Vex." Shrugged. "It was going to kill us anyway." "But no one strikes the Vex. No one ever has. It is not possible." Had been quiet since they boarded the ship. Now she looked up from her data pad, her face thoughtful. "Why not?" she asked. "They're big, they're strong, they're fast, but they're not gods. They're just animals, very dangerous animals, but animals nonetheless." Elder shook his head. "You do not understand. Every species in the galaxy knows the truth. The Vex cannot be fought. They cannot be stopped. They can only be avoided, and even then, death is simply delayed." "That's not a survival strategy," said. "That's just slow extinction." "It is the only strategy that exists. The Vex are perfect predators. They evolved on a world where everything was deadly, where only the strongest survived. They became the ultimate killers, and then they left their world and found an entire galaxy of prey." Was reading through data on her pad. Her eyes were moving fast and her lips were pressed together in concentration. "I pulled biological data from the station," she said. "The Vex physiology is impressive. Armored skin that can resist most weapons. Venom that shuts down nervous systems in seconds. Sensory clusters that can detect heartbeats through walls." She paused. "But there's something else." "What?" asked. "Their metabolism. It's incredibly high. They burn energy like a fire burns fuel. Their speed, their strength, their senses, all of it requires enormous amounts of power." Looked up. "They're built for ambush hunting. Short bursts of extreme activity followed by rest. If they can't make a quick kill, they exhaust themselves." Leaned forward. "You're saying they have a weakness." "I'm saying they evolved to be perfect at one thing, killing prey that runs away. Their entire biology, their entire psychology is built around the assumption that nothing will fight back. Nothing will make the hunt difficult." Smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "They've never met humans." Elder stared at her. "What are humans?" Answered, "We evolved on a planet where everything wanted to kill us too. Predators, disease, weather, even our own kind. We survived not because we were stronger or faster, but because we refused to quit. Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting. We're not built for bursts of speed. We're built to keep going long after everything else has stopped." "You cannot possibly think you can fight the Vex," Elder said. Even if what you say is true, they have claws that cut through metal, venom that kills in seconds, armor that stops your weapons." "Then we don't fight them the way you expect," said. She stood up and looked at her crew. "We don't try to kill them quickly. We make them chase us. We tire them out. We become the kind of prey they've never seen before." Stood beside her. "You're talking about going back to that station." "There are Vex there who just learned that humans hit back. Right now they're confused. They don't understand what happened. If we leave, they'll recover. They'll adapt. They'll keep hunting, and someday they'll find Earth." His voice was hard. "But if we go back and finish what we started, we send a message to the whole galaxy. Humans are not prey." The bridge was silent. Then one by one the crew stood. The security officers, even the surviving Kel, shaking but determined. "The galaxy has been running from the Vex for 10,000 years, said. "It's time someone taught them what it feels like to be hunted." The horizon's edge hung in the darkness, close enough to the station to see the flickering lights but far enough to stay hidden. Inside, the crew was preparing for war. Not the kind of war that most species understood, with massive fleets and powerful weapons. This was going to be something different, something that had not been tried in 10,000 years. Stood in front of a screen, showing diagrams of the Vex that she had built from the station's data. The creature looked even more terrifying when broken down into parts, each one designed for a single purpose: killing. "Their armor is thickest on the front," she explained. "That tells us they expect to face their prey head-on. The back and joints have weaker protection. If we can get behind them, we have a better chance of doing damage." "What about the venom?" asked. "The spines that deliver it are on their backs and arms. They have to get close to use them. If we keep our distance, we reduce the risk." Change the image to show the Vex's internal systems. But here's the important part. Their heart, or what passes for one, is incredibly powerful. It pumps blood at a rate that would kill most species. This gives them their speed and strength, but it also means they burn through energy at an amazing rate. Captain nodded. "How long can they maintain full combat speed?" "Based on the data, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of continuous activity. After that, they need to rest. Their bodies literally cannot sustain the effort." Turned to face the crew. Every species the Vex have hunted was either dead or running within the first 5 minutes. They never needed to chase anything for longer than that. "So we make them chase us for hours," said. "Exactly. We work in teams. When one team gets tired, another takes over. We never let them rest, but we rest constantly. We play to our strength, which is endurance, and we exploit their weakness, which is stamina." Was already thinking through the tactics. "We need to control the battlefield. The station has lots of corridors, lots of rooms, lots of places to hide and ambush. We set up barriers, anything that slows them down and makes them work harder." "What about weapons?" one of the security officers asked. "Our plasma rounds didn't even scratch them." "We won't try to shoot through their armor," said. "We'll go for the weak points, joints, sensor clusters, eyes if they have them, and we use everything available: pipes, tools, debris. Sometimes the simplest weapons are the most effective because the enemy doesn't expect them." Elder watched from the corner of the room. The old Kel had not spoken much since they escaped, but now he stepped forward. His voice was still weak, but there was something new in it, something that might have been hope. "You truly believe this can work?" he asked. Looked at him. "I believe that running hasn't worked for 10,000 years. I believe that hiding has only delayed the inevitable. And I believe that humans have survived things that should have destroyed us over and over again because we don't know how to quit." She paused. "The Vex are predators. They're used to prey that thinks like prey. They've never met a species that thinks like a predator." The next several hours were spent preparing. The crew worked without rest, driven by a mixture of fear and determination. They modified their armor, adding extra layers in key areas. They gathered weapons, both conventional and improvised. They studied the station's layout, memorizing every corridor and room. prepared medical supplies. The Vex venom was deadly, but she found that some human medications could slow its effects. Not cure it, not stop it, but buy precious minutes that might mean the difference between life and death. Divided the crew into 3 teams. Each team would engage the Vex for 20 minutes, then fall back while the next team took over. This rotation would continue indefinitely, giving the humans time to rest while keeping the Vex under constant pressure. "Remember," he told them, "we're not trying to win a fight, we're trying to win a marathon. Every minute they chase us, every bit of energy they spend brings us closer to victory. Don't be heroes. Don't take risks. Just keep moving, keep them following, and let time do the work." The surviving Kel wanted to help. They were small and weak compared to the humans, but they knew the station better than anyone. Elder volunteered to guide the teams through the corridors, showing them shortcuts and hiding places that might give them an advantage. "I am old," he said. "I have watched my people die for years. If there is a chance, even a small one, to strike back at the creatures that destroyed us, I will take it." As the ship approached the station for the second time, the crew gathered in the cargo bay. They were armed, armored, and as ready as they would ever be. Fear was visible on every face, but so was something else. Something that the galaxy had forgotten existed. Defiance stood before them. She was not tall, she was not physically imposing, but when she spoke, everyone listened. "The Vex have ruled this galaxy through fear," she said. "For 10,000 years, every species has accepted their role as prey. They told themselves it was impossible to fight back. They believed that running was the only option." She looked at each crew member in turn. "We're going to prove them wrong, not because we're stronger, not because we're faster, but because we come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day and we survived anyway." She picked up her weapon and checked the charge. "The Vex have never been afraid of anything. Tonight, we're going to give them their first lesson in fear. Tonight, the prey becomes the hunter." The airlock opened. The station waited in the darkness ahead, cold and silent and full of death. The crew moved forward, stepping off the ship and onto the metal floor of the docking bay. Somewhere in the shadows, the Vex were waiting. They had sensed the humans returning. They were excited. New prey had come back, and this time there would be no escape. They had no idea what was about to happen. Raised her hand, signaling the first team to take position, moved into the darkness with his squad, their footsteps quiet but deliberate. They were not hiding anymore. They were announcing their presence. "Come and get us," whispered into the dark. And the hunt began. The first Vex came screaming out of the darkness like a nightmare-given form. It was smaller than the Alpha, but still towered over the humans. Its claws scraped against the walls as it charged, and the sound was like knives being sharpened. His team was ready. They fired their weapons, not at the creature's chest, but at its joints and sensors. Most shots missed or bounced away, but a few found their marks. The Vex stumbled, more from surprise than pain. "Fall back," shouted, "keep moving." They ran, not in panic but in a controlled retreat that led the Vex deeper into the station. Behind them, the creature gave chase. It was fast, impossibly fast, but the humans had studied the corridors, and they knew exactly where they were going. They reached where debris had been piled into a barrier. The Vex hit the obstacle at full speed. Its claws tore through metal and plastic, but the seconds it took to clear the path gave the humans time to gain distance. Then Team 2 appeared from a side corridor. Fresh legs, fresh energy. They opened fire and threw improvised explosives that filled the hallway with light and noise. The Vex roared and turned to face this new threat. His team fell back to the rest area. They were breathing hard, their muscles burning, but they were alive. They had 20 minutes to recover before their next rotation. The pattern continued. Team 2 led the Vex through another section of the station, over more barriers and through more. When they tired, Team 3 took over. The creature never got more than a few seconds of rest. 2 hours passed. The Vex's movements had changed. Where once it had been liquid and graceful, now there was hesitation. Its charges were slower. Its reactions were delayed. The humans noticed and their confidence grew. Then the other Vex joined the hunt. 4 more creatures emerged from different sections of the station. They had been watching, waiting, studying these strange prey that would not run away properly. Now they moved together, a hunting pack that had never failed to bring down their target. But the humans had planned for this too. "Split them up," commanded through the communication system. "Each team takes 1 Vex. Rotate faster. Don't let them coordinate." The station became a maze of running battles. Humans appeared and disappeared through corridors, drawing the Vex in different directions. The creatures tried to regroup, but every time they came together, the humans would strike from multiple angles and pull them apart again. The Alpha, largest and strongest of the pack, grew frustrated. This was not how hunts were supposed to work. Prey was supposed to huddle together, trembling, waiting to die. These creatures scattered like water, impossible to catch, impossible to corner. 5 hours into the battle, the first Vex fell. It did not die from weapons. It did not die from cleverness or traps. It simply stopped. Its massive body collapsed in the middle of a corridor, lungs heaving, heart struggling to pump blood through exhausted muscles. 10,000 years of evolution had never prepared it for prey that refused to quit. Stood over the fallen creature. It tried to raise its claws, but the movement was slow and weak. Lifted a heavy blade he had taken from the station's engineering bay. The Vex's armor was weaker now, stressed by hours of exertion. "Your species has been killing for 10,000 years, he said. "Consider this your retirement." The blade came down. The Vex died. News spread through the station via the communication system. A Vex was dead. Actually dead. Killed by the creatures that were supposed to be nothing more than entertainment. The remaining Vex heard it too. They heard the sounds of their pack members' death, and for the first time in their existence they felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. These small, weak things had killed one of them. That was not supposed to be possible. The hunt continued. Hours stretched into what felt like days. The humans worked in perfect rotation, never allowing themselves to become too tired, never allowing the Vex to recover. One by one, the creatures began to fail. The second Vex fell after 8 hours. It tried to retreat, to find a place to rest and recover, but the humans followed. They gave it no peace. They harassed it with noise and light and occasional attacks until its body simply gave out. The third and fourth fell within minutes of each other, cornered in a section of the station with no escape. Their armor, once impenetrable, cracked under the sustained assault of weapons aimed at weak points that exhaustion had revealed. Only the Alpha remained. It stood in the central chamber of the station, surrounded by the bodies of its pack. It was breathing hard, its massive form trembling with fatigue, but it was still dangerous. Hurt animals were always the most dangerous. Walked into the chamber alone. His voice crackled through her earpiece. "Captain, don't. We can finish it together." "No," she replied. "This needs to be just me." The Alpha saw her. It straightened, gathering the last of its strength. Here was the leader of these impossible prey. Kill her, and maybe the others would finally break. Maybe they would remember how to be afraid. It charged. Did not run. She did not raise her weapon. She stood perfectly still as 3 meters of death came toward her. The Alpha's claws swung down, stepped to the side. The movement was small, precise, and came at the last possible moment. The creature's attack hit empty air. It stumbled. Its legs were shaking now. Every movement cost energy it no longer had. Looked up at it. "You've been apex predators for 10,000 years, she said. Her voice was calm. "We've been fighting things bigger than us for 2 million. Get used to it." The Alpha roared and swung again, dodged, and again. Each attack was slower than the last. Each miss drained more energy from a body that had nothing left to give. Finally, the Alpha could barely stand. It looked down at the small human who had destroyed everything its species believed about themselves, stepped forward and slapped the creature across its sensory cluster. The sound echoed through the chamber. It was not a killing blow. It was not meant to be. It was an insult, a statement, a demonstration of total dominance over a species that had never known anything but victory. The Alpha made a sound that no human had ever heard from a Vex before, a sound of pure, primal fear. Then it turned and ran. The most lethal predator in the galaxy fled from a human half its size, defeated not by weapons or technology, but by endurance, strategy, and a slap. The Vex Alpha fled through the station, crashing through corridors and barriers without any of its former grace. The humans watched it go. They could have chased it. They could have finished it, but held them back. "Let it run," she said. "Let it go back to its kind and tell them what happened here. Fear spreads faster than any weapon." They found the Alpha's escape pod launching from the far side of the station. The creature had abandoned its hunting ground, its pack, and its pride. It was running away from prey for the first time in the entire history of its species. The station was silent now. The humans gathered in the central chamber, surrounded by the bodies of 4 Vex warriors. They were exhausted beyond words. Many had injuries that would need treatment. Some would carry scars for the rest of their lives. But they were alive, and the Vex were dead. Elder stood among them, his small body trembling. Tears ran down his wrinkled face. He walked to where one of the Vex bodies lay and looked at it for a long time. Then he did something no Kell had done in 10,000 years. He kicked it. "For my people," he whispered, "for all of them." The journey back to human space took 3 weeks. During that time, word began to spread through the galaxy's communication networks. At first, no one believed it. A young species, barely out of their home system, had defeated a Vex hunting pack. It had to be a mistake, a lie, propaganda. Then the recording started to circulate. Camera footage from the human crew's armor showed everything. The endless chase, the Vex falling one by one, and finally, Captain standing alone against the Alpha and slapping it into submission. The galaxy had not felt hope in 10,000 years. Now it spread like fire. 6 months after the battle, a delegation arrived at Luna Station, humanity's largest outpost beyond Earth. They represented something called the Galactic Council, a loose alliance of surviving species who had spent centuries hiding from the Vex. They wanted to meet the creatures who had done the impossible. The delegation was led by a Kell ambassador named. She was young for her position, chosen specifically because she had known Elder before his death. The old Kell had not survived long after returning to his people. The stress of captivity and the battle had been too much for his aged body, but he had died smiling, knowing that his species might finally have a future. Ambassador found Doctor in a small coffee shop near the station's main plaza. The human scientist was reading something on a data pad, a cup of coffee growing cold beside her. She looked up when the Kell approached. Doctor asked, "I am ambassador of the Galactic Council. May I sit?" Smiled and gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Please, I've been expecting someone to show up eventually." Sat, her movements careful and precise. She studied the human across from her, was small by human standards, with no visible weapons and no armor. She looked like she could be broken with a single blow. Yet this was one of the creatures that had destroyed a Vex hunting pack. "The Council has sent me to ask a question," said. "One that has been debated since your recordings reached our networks. How did you do it? How did you defeat creatures that have terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years?" Took a sip of her coffee. "The Vex evolved to be perfect predators," she said. "But perfect predators only exist in environments without competition. They became so good at killing prey that ran away that they never developed the ability to handle prey that fought back. But other species have tried to fight back. They all failed. Because they tried to beat the Vex at their own game. They tried to be faster, stronger, more deadly. That's impossible. The Vex are better at those things than anyone. Set down her cup. Humans took a different approach. We didn't try to out-predator them. We just refused to be prey. Leaned forward, explain. Humans evolved on a planet where everything wanted to kill us. Not just big predators, but diseases, weather, poison plants, even the water we drank could make us sick. We survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most stubborn. Our ancestors hunted by following prey for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting. We're literally built to not give up. The Vex have hunted hundreds of species, said. Why has no one else tried this approach? Smiled sadly. Because every other species in the galaxy learned to fear the Vex thousands of years ago. That fear became part of their culture, their biology, their very identity. They couldn't imagine fighting back because fighting back was unthinkable. Humans never learned that fear. We didn't know the Vex were supposed to be invincible, so we just treated them like any other problem to be solved. There was a long silence, looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vex were still hunting, still killing, but now they were doing it more carefully. Scouts had reported Vex packs avoiding systems where human ships had been detected. The Council wants to know if humanity will help us, said finally. If you will teach others to fight the way you fight, if you will lead us in a war against the Vex. Considered the question. That's not my decision to make, I'm just a scientist, but I can tell you this. She leaned forward. Humans don't like bullies, we don't like seeing the strong prey on the weak, and we really don't like being told something is impossible. She finished her coffee and stood. The Vex have spent 10,000 years teaching the galaxy to be afraid. Humanity is about to spend the next 10,000 years teaching the galaxy how to be brave. That's not a threat. It's not a promise. It's just what we do. Stood as well. And what about the Vex? They will not simply accept defeat. They will adapt. They will change. Smiled. Good. That means they're finally learning. Fear is the first step toward respect, and respect is the first step toward peace. She picked up her data pad. Or war. We're pretty good at both. She walked away, leaving the ambassador alone with her thoughts. Outside the coffee shop, the stars burned cold and bright. On thousands of worlds, species that had spent cowering in darkness were looking up at those stars with new eyes. The recordings from the station had shown them something they had forgotten existed. Hoping. And on the edge of known space, Vex hunting packs moved more carefully than they ever had before. They still hunted. They still killed. But now they looked over their shoulders. Now they avoided certain systems. Now they felt something that their species had never experienced in 10,000 years of dominance. Fear. Captain stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars drift past. The ship had been repaired and refitted. The crew had recovered from their wounds. And somewhere ahead, there were more Vex, more battles, more chances to show the galaxy that the age of predators was coming to an end. She thought about the alpha she had faced, the creature that had run from her slap. It was still out there somewhere, still hunting probably, still trying to understand what had happened. She hoped it remembered. She hoped it told its story to every Vex it met. She hoped they all understood the lesson that humanity had taught. The prey had learned to bite back, and the hunt would never be the same. Smiled and gave the order to move forward. There was a big galaxy out there, full of species that needed help and predators that needed humbling. Humanity had work to do. And humans never quit.